everything as we know is a drama with this couple. So, according to Harry, taking into consideration the amount of time it takes to go from Frogmore Cottage to the hospital, which is an hour and 5 minutes, he is stated unequivocally, and he's the only witness, that they were back to Frogmore Cottage within 2 hours of having given Meghan having given birth to Archie, having had two epidurals. I don't know how you can have two epidurals, but we're going to talk about that now with somebody who is actually who was actually at the Portland hospital and who can give us insider information. And I think we're going to debunk once and for all this myth of Archie. Hello, Jennifer. Thank you for coming here. And you know Jennifer from her channel. Thank you for coming here. And she is going to give us some information that is going to blow your mind away. I'm going to link her video because she just done a video about this and her channel. So you can also go check it out. But I wanted to talk to you about this because this is so important and for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, because it's fraudulent, everything that they've said. I'll give you a rundown of the theories that they've said so far.
Sure.
Harry said that after Meghan Markle gave birth, a very complicated birth, by the way, she was a geriatric birth with two epidurals, which I think he made a mistake there because we're going to get into this a little bit. And then they were back into to the cottage. And then when Meghan did the Oprah interview, she gave three stories. First, she said that the reason why she didn't notify the paps or the press or anybody was because she didn't want them to block the entrance to the emergency room of the Portland hospital. Later, she said that, oh, I didn't want to call them because why should I give the picture of the people who were being racist against my son? And third, she said that, well, we did notify them, but nobody came playing the victim card. All of those theories, right there, right? So, protocol dictates that as soon as a royal lady goes into birth, security notifies the queen. That is a non-negotiable. But clearly, we know that the queen was not notified, which means that the royal protection officers who serve the queen and who have a very strict protocol broke one of the most important security rules. Okay. So now the reason why I'm bringing Jennifer is because you gave birth at the Portland hospital, right?
I did. My husband and I were living overseas at the time. He was working overseas, and I had them in April 2013. I was 39 at the time, so I was 4 years past what they considered a geriatric pregnancy, and I was delivering twins. So, that's obviously a complicated situation in of itself. So.
Okay, there is a myth that people say, I know for a fact that they don't have an emergency room, like for example in the United States, where for example, if there's a car accident, you go to the emergency room and then they move you within the hospital. And even their own website, the Portland Hospital, does say that if you have, an emergency like that, you have to go to a proper NHS hospital in the United Kingdom, and they don't treat those. They do not have an emergency room, guys. Okay, it's a private hospital.
Right.
So,
it's a private hospital, and you're absolutely correct, Paula. It doesn't have a dedicated emergency unit. But what they do have is a neonatal intensive care unit for the babies. And then also something, and I talk about this in my video, it's basically called an enhanced maternal critical care unit for the mothers in case they need any type of special emergency intensive care before, during, or after the delivery of the baby. So yes, you are absolutely correct. They don't have a dedicated emergency room or entrance or anything like that, but they are able to offer, critical care if there's certain complications that arise during the birthing process, basically.
For disclaimer, also, I have to say that in their own website, they say that if the complications get to be
Above and
beyond the
beyond.
scope of what they can, they will transfer you because they have a limited they have for certain types of emergency, but if it goes beyond that remit, then they do send
Right.
you immediately to a proper hospital. So we
Right.
have to
Absolutely.
also keep that in mind.
Sure.
Okay, so when people know that. So there's no emergency entrance, there's no emergency rooms. Like Megan said, that the reason why she didn't call the PAPs is because she didn't want them to do what they do. She was trying to belittle Catherine, that, how they hold the street and everything, and they have all these PAPs taking
Mm-hmm.
pictures when they come out. That
Yeah.
she didn't want to do
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And then it's because
They,
they were racist.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
because
I
nobody
know.
came because they're racist.
I'm just trying to figure out which scenario, you know, which one is it, Megan? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about. We're gonna show you some evidence of some stuff, guys. Um, you had, because this is incredible. This is incredible because we just heard Megan talk about postpartum preeclampsia.
Mhm.
So this is something that Jennifer also suffered. Did you have an epidural when you gave birth to your children?
I had an emergency C-section.
Oh, okay. So you did they give you a
Yeah.
general anesthesia or epidural?
I don't believe it was general because I was awake the entire time, but
Okay, so it
but
was an
I was
epidural.
basically from the waist down. I wasn't feeling
Yeah.
anything, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, just like me, I had a C-section with Hendrik, and it
Oh,
was
you
an
did.
epidural, and I didn't
Oh,
feel my
wow.
legs for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I was completely not
No.
feeling anything for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and they discharged me the next day because I had to go to the bathroom, and they had to make sure
Hmm.
that I could get up. It was very important for them to stand me up to make sure that I had no nerve damage or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So there's something that I do know, that the Portland hospital, that they're talking about. Harry's saying that Meghan Markle got two epidurals. The procedure used, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the procedure for me at least is that they insert a catheter,
Hmm.
and you keep that catheter inside of you in case they need to keep adjusting the epidural, give you more,
Yes.
and so therefore it would have been impossible for her to get two epidurals, because that would have meant that they would have to pull it out and then put it back in.
You know, I I didn't even know that it was possible to get to, so I was a little bit aghast at that as well. I mean, for me, my blood my blood pressure was elevated even before I checked in. So my consultant at the time knew what was going on, and after checking in, I started bleeding out. So that's why they decided to do the emergency C-section for me. And I was my babies were great. The twins were fine. Everything with my preeclampsia, and you can ask me specifics about it, but everything with that happened about 4 hours after the twins were delivered. And at that point, that was when I was wheeled into that emergency theater, maternal critical care area unit,
Yeah.
whatever they call it. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about this because Harry also claims we can see the, oh crap, we can see the room here.
Hmm.
He said that he inhaled the entire laughing gas, which is really shocking because you would think there would be a nurse in the room,
Yeah.
because that's what they say.
Yeah.
There's a nurse in the room when they're administering any type of treatment. One of those treatments would be the laughing gas. Is this the laughing gas right here?
You know what? I didn't have laughing gas, so I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is I don't know if I really believe that story, just because I mean, that laughing gas is reserved for the patient, is it not? It's reserved for the patient
Yeah.
under medical care at the time. For him to just grab it and use it, I mean, wouldn't that be against hospital policy? That always boggled my mind.
Yes. I want to show you this, guys, because this is what pretty much Harry described. This woman here sitting on this ball, and you have the bathtub, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what he said it was going to be. We have a beautiful dedicated water birth room with us, then, because he said in his book that she was humping on a ball, I guess, to induce the labor because she was overdue. This would have been her room, kind of thing. So she
It's
would have been
yeah.
with a nurse.
Yeah, and the nurses are in and out. It's a private hospital, and the nurses are very attentive there. She was a geriatric pregnancy as well. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that she didn't bounce on that ball and all that stuff, but anyone over 35, I can tell you that if you're in London and you have a good consultant, they're going to tell you, "Look, you are high risk. You can try this stuff," but most of the time they are encouraging women not to do all that type of thing. They just want to kind of make sure that everything is being attended to. I mean, I can remember wanting that too, thinking, oh, I'm going to have, be in my room with candles, and I'm going to have this wonderful
You
birthing
can't.
experience, this kind of stuff. But I mean, I hate to say it, but when you're 35 and over, your consultants and your doctors, they're always a little bit more like playing with you. Like, you know what, that's a great thing, but you're high risk. You're high risk. And
You're
they
high risk, yeah.
always are. Yeah, they're always trying to tell you, you are high risk. So just, that might be great, but it's a possibility, a strong possibility that that's not going to happen. You're probably not going to be giving birth underwater. And especially for me, because I knew it was a twin birth, that was probably wasn't going to happen either.
Well, so for me, I find it incredibly. We'll put it to the people so you guys know, because Jennifer was actually at the Portland. I do know that the Portland hospital has a 24-hour chef service that they do, because I was there once, but not at the maternity thing. It was something else. And you have a 24-hour chef. And I mean, depending on the level you are, clearly, right? And we
They
are
even serve
assuming,
high tea. They even
yeah,
serve you
it's
high
so high.
tea. Like
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I'm,
Yeah.
I was there for
So
6 days. Yeah.
So it is incredible that Harry would feel the need to send at 2 a.m. in the morning his bodyguards to remove bodyguards who are keeping his pregnant wife safe, to buy Nando's when Nando's is closed. They closed at 11 p.m. when I was there. I remember the last time. I don't know if for delivery, or even for eating, Nando's closes at 11. So that story, and the fact that he had access to real food at the hospital, they can make you anything, especially if you're the prince.
They
So,
had a pretty darn good menu too, Paula. They really did.
yeah. No, I know, I know, I know, I know. I saw.
Yeah.
This is all BS, because, and especially the epidural part. The typical waiting period for a woman to be discharged from the Portland Hospital in the
Mm-hmm.
UK after a vaginal birth without complications with
Yes.
an epidural is usually 2 days if
2
there
days.
are no
No
complications.
complications. Mm-hmm.
For mothers who have undergone a cesarean section, the waiting period is typically 3 to 4 days if there are no
No
complications.
complications. Right.
So
And
how
I
can
think
Meghan? Yeah, go
I was
ahead,
going
go
to
ahead.
say, Paula, I'm sorry. I know that you have really read up on this account, but so this is what I don't get. What did they ever say that she actually was in that bath trying to do the
Yeah,
water birth, or
that's what
was it
Harry
just her
said. That's
bouncing
what
on the
Harry
ball?
said, that she was in the bathtub.
Because
Well,
here's
she
the
had the
thing.
epidural, which is impossible, because then
Yeah.
you can get water inside your spinal, because it's a tube, guys, that they put out there, and if they insert you inside the bathtub, no.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Paula, that I was trying to get at with you is what I don't understand is, and I talk about this at length in my video, what really got to me was that you're going to talk about something like that. You're going to throw out the word preeclampsia in one sentence and then drop it. Now, I don't know what the intent was there. I don't know why she would bring it up without giving her audience some valuable insight and information about it. And even if she didn't want to open up and be personal about her own experiences with it, she's sitting, well, I don't even think she was sitting across from Whitney.
She
Maybe they
wasn't.
were Zooming or something. I don't know what. But to then not even ask Whitney about her experience with it, because I can guarantee you that there were pregnant people listening to that, or people that have gone through it personally, like me, or people that know somebody that has gone through it. So I just found it particularly irresponsible to not even talk about it for even a minute or so, about what it was and what some of the warning signs are. I mean, again, if you're going to bring it up, if you're going to bring it
Yeah.
up, then why not? So to me, I know that you know about bouncing on the ball and the laughing gas and the tub. I didn't read Spare. However, I read snippets and watched videos about it. But my point was, if there's a risk for preeclampsia there, and there was at least one factor because she was a geriatric pregnancy, and for that, your doctors are carefully monitoring your blood pressure. They're monitoring, they're doing blood tests on you, and they're checking for things like protein in the urine. Because
Yeah.
again, I go into this in my video. Basically, what preeclampsia is, it's elevated high blood pressure, and you can develop it before, during, or after pregnancy, meaning postpartum preeclampsia, which is what Meghan said that she experienced. That's what I experienced. So point being, you're being monitored throughout the entire process. So if there was a propensity or a likelihood that she would have developed it, her medical team would have been in the know. I don't know if they would have even bothered with things like bouncing on a ball and with the tub thing and all that. Maybe they did, but what we need from her is a little bit of context and a little bit of responsibility to the story, if that's what she's going to bring out. So I highly doubt that her blood pressure wasn't being monitored. I highly doubt that her urine wasn't being checked. And they of course, they have to know these things, because if you have protein in your urine, that's also a strong indication that preeclampsia is going to develop or has developed. And I was being monitored. My blood pressure was 230 over 130 when it started happening to me in the hospital. My
Can you
blood
tell us
plate.
what happened, what they did with you, and how serious it was?
Sure. So, like I mentioned before, so 4 hours after delivering, I was finally back in the room recovering, and I just woke up and I knew something was wrong. It was just my heart was beating so loudly in my head and in my ears. I knew something was wrong. I told my husband, get the nurse in here. Before I knew it, they were going ahead and wheeling me in. I guess at that point, that's when they told my husband later that at that point I was 230 over 130, which is getting pretty serious. So I was administered a series of 8 what they call booster shots, which is magnesium sulfate. And that's designed to bring your elevated blood pressure down quickly. Because what happens with that is your body starts shutting down. You can develop seizures, all kinds of things that are just obviously not good. And also, for me, I also developed what's called HELP syndrome, and I go into this in my video as well. The acronym is HELLP, and what it basically stands for is, I always mispronounce it. It's hemoloa, and then it's elevated liver enzymes and also low blood platelet count. So basically, HELP syndrome can develop as a factor along with preeclampsia. And it's basically the destruction of your red blood cells. It's indicating high liver enzymes. And also when your blood platelet counts get very, very low, you start losing your ability for your blood to clot. So it's basically like your live red blood cells are dying. So there's all these different types of factors that are going on. She didn't say that she suffered from HELP syndrome, so we will give her that. She only says that it was preeclampsia, but preeclampsia can develop into eclampsia if not addressed and, you know, taken care of very quickly.
Well, the thing is that it is also heavily hinted because of what the woman says, Whitney says, because, and also what Meghan says, that she had to face the public, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Mm-hmm.
suffer basically quietly. And then
Yeah.
she talks about, so facing the public means that she was a royal because she gave birth to Lily during COVID, I think, almost getting out of COVID or so. No, during COVID,
Right.
literally.
Yeah.
So she
I
wouldn't
think
have had
so.
to
Yeah.
face anybody. So
Right.
the fact that she's saying that she had to face the public and suffer quietly, why would not be a suffering? And it's something that is that, because I do believe that she wants to imply, because of course she doesn't say when I was pregnant with Lily or when I was pregnant with Archie, the X, Y, and Z happened. Because if it happened
Yeah.
with Archie, it couldn't have happened with Archie because she was traveling. She traveled to Paris for her friend's wedding within a couple of weeks. She went
Mm-hmm.
to Italy to see another friend. She went to Spain with Elton John. She refused to go to see the Queen at Sandringham, and she flew in
Wasn't all
private.
this in the 6-week period after his birth?
Pardon me. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
excuse me. Well, yeah, almost
Yeah.
immediately. The Queen. He was born in May, and the Queen went to Sandringham, and she always goes in June.
Right.
And they asked to come. They could not come because excuse me, Megan couldn't travel
Right.
because of the baby. But then she got on the plane and went to Ibiza with Elton John. From then they went to Paris. And then she went back to Italy, and then she went to see Serena Williams for a
Mm-hmm.
weekend in New York. After that, she secretly flew to Toronto because we
Mm.
know she sent the text messages to Jason Kanoff when she was
You're
sending
under observation, Paula. I had to take high blood pressure medication for months after being discharged. So I know that even if it's mild, medical teams don't take that lying down. They're very, very vigilant, and they watch you because you can develop it even up to 6 weeks after birth sometimes. But she said she already had it. So if she had it, I don't know if she would have been, I don't know if she would have been allowed to travel as much as she did. And I also feel that the queen was a very lovely and gracious woman. And we all know that she was afforded a lot of special treatment and privileges. So something says to me that if she did not want to present him because she had suffered so many horrible trials during the delivery and the pregnancy itself, I don't think there would have been anyone there that would have forced her to do that. I think that Catherine has been gracious because she knows that the public has such a love for her husband and for the family, and she's aware that they really admire and respect her, and she knows that as a royal princess now, well, then obviously she was the duchess, but she's very gracious. She wants to show the baby to the public because she knows that the public are dying to see her wonderful family.
And
But
also
point
because you're
being,
proud and you want to show it off.
yeah, point being, I
And I
don't
just
think
want to make a
anyone's
disclaimer.
forcing them.
I just want to make a
Yeah.
disclaimer because people think that she gives birth and within an hour she's outside. That no, guys, they wait
No.
for about 6 to 8 hours, and then for her to. This is why you're able to see her almost. They always wait almost before they're discharged
Right.
to come out. So when you see Catherine
Yeah,
come
when
out, it's
she,
when they're about getting ready to be discharged. Because
yes,
I've heard
and
a lot of
uh-huh.
people saying, "Oh, Catherine, she just gave birth." So people have this idea that she
No.
is basically she still has the placenta coming out, and she's pushed outside. No, they always
Well, I
do it before.
remember
Yeah, they
George
always do
was
it before they're
delivered in
discharged.
yeah, George was delivered 3 months after the twins were, and that was a huge, huge deal, and I'm such a nerd. I got one of those cloth commemorative, um, Whole Foods bags, shopping bags. I should have brought it to show you, but it
Yeah,
said Prince George announcing the arrival, and it gives the date. I forget. It was it July or June? I forget. I think it was June.
yeah.
Was it June he was born? But
July.
and July, yeah. But I remember reading the articles. She was about to be discharged, and I remember in an article talking about that Catherine was in her room doing her own makeup, getting ready to go out and greet everyone
Yeah,
outside of the step of the Lindo wing.
this story with everything about Archie, I call this BS. So your
But
experience with
yeah.
this is your experience with postpartum preeclampsia, and you being at the Portland hospital. Um, do you think that Megan was discharged with? When I said that they were back within 2 hours, and Harry's the only witness alive, guys, that we have, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That he says that they were back within 2 hours. If you take into consideration that they had to clean Meghan Markle, that depends if she didn't tear, they have to sew her up because
Mhm.
I had a C-section, but I have friends who have had vaginal births and they have to be sewn up sometimes, down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so they got in a car. So within 2 hours, that includes driving time, which is we have established that at a fast speed, hitting every green light. And because he didn't have his like he didn't want to notify anybody about security, so they weren't advertising that they were going with security, or they didn't have any cars or police cars stopping traffic so they can
Mhm.
zoom by, right?
Yeah.
So that means that they barely slapped Meghan Markle, wiped her off, spanked the kid, put her in the van, and sent her to Frogmore Cottage.
Well, that's why you took so much care, Paula, in the beginning of the show to remind everyone watching that these were the guidelines even provided by the Portland.
Yeah.
This is when you're going to be released, even, when it's just a normal epidural situation, 1 to 2 days. These are the guidelines. It's going to be what did you say? 3 to 4 days if it's
No,
any type of
it's yeah.
complication.
Yeah.
Right. And then, and that's not even talking about something like preeclampsia. Now, again, I don't know how severe her preeclampsia was. I don't know how
Well,
quickly
she
they
said it was
caught it.
serious. It's a serious thing, but she doesn't say
Right.
anything.
Right. And that is why. And that's what leads to all of this. There is absolutely no context, and it's so extremely irresponsible. And all it does is really raise more questions, and people are left scratching their heads as to what is the real story here. Not only are you doing women a disservice by not actually talking about what you're going through, but you're not giving any proper context. So if you don't want people talking about it, then just give them something to go on, something. I mean, I hate to say, "Oh, I don't believe her, and she
I don't
didn't do
believe her.
this, and she didn't."
I don't believe her because
Yeah.
I don't believe the birth story given. And we only have, guys, I really keep going back to this, that the only living witness is
Prince
Harry.
Harry.
The reason why I'm saying this, guys, that I don't believe anything Meghan Markle say, I don't believe her birth story or her miscarriage story, because I did a video about this, the Department of the State of California, and I even showed the email I got. Any baby that is less than 20 weeks is considered the medical waste, and therefore the hospital by law has to
Mhm.
cremate it. They can give you the ashes. 20 weeks over, then you have to make funeral arrangements. Literally, they
Yes.
they just don't give you the body like Harry says it happened. This is Dr. Richard Bradford. This is Mr. Earl. He's an Earl. His wife is called Penelope Law, who works
Mhm.
at the Portland Hospital. And Megan claimed in one of the things in one of the articles that it was Dr. Penelope Law. She's considered, because she's a lady, that she's the poshest doctor in the United Kingdom. So this is what Mr. Richard Bradford published. My wife did not deliver Archie, but the Sun never contacted us to check if she had. Typical shabby journalism. Whereas the Daily
Mhm.
Mail rang me the day before to check, and I was able to tell them that she hadn't delivered Archie.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, from your experience at the Portland Hospital, what do you make of that story?
I find it highly unlikely, Paula, that they were back at Frogmore in 2 hours. Our flat at the time was 2.6 miles from the Portland. And to get there in London traffic, depending on the time of day, it takes us about 20 minutes just for 2.6 miles. I Googled just for reference before I got on with you. I mean, obviously, you probably have viewers that are watching that aren't in the States. They don't use miles, but I'm just going to use miles because I'm in the States. But I Googled it and it said 20 miles, roughly
That's
20
about
miles.
31 kilometers, 32
Yes.
kilometers.
Yeah. So roughly 20 miles, 31 kilometers distance between Frogmore and the Portland Hospital.
In London traffic, guys, this is like New York traffic, if not worse. Okay,
Yes.
and and I know what people are going to say, but maybe he had the police people, you know how they clear the route. Harry already said in his book that they didn't notify anybody. So
Yes.
they wouldn't have had that. They wouldn't have had police clearings the road for them.
Regardless, yeah, regardless of us even talking about the distance and the traffic, the fact that according to them there was two epidurals and also that there was preeclampsia. She doesn't talk about the severity, but those two factors alone give a pretty strong indication that there's something fishy with that story of being back in 2 hours. No reputable hospital is going to risk their reputation by allowing something like that. Now, I remember talking about this with my husband, and he's like, "Well, I don't know. Did they maybe have like a whole hospital set up in the Frogmore Cottage and all that?" I'm like, "It's
No,
highly unlikely."
no.
I don't
Again, the
think
palace
so.
didn't know the palace. They didn't inform the palace.
Yes.
They didn't inform anybody.
Wasn't it
Um,
7 hours after is when they found out?
well,
Something like that?
the palace was made an announcement around 9:20 in the morning that Meghan had gone into labor, and then
Mhm.
they had to correct it and say that she had already given birth at 5:20 in the morning or something like that.
Mhm. But
Okay, so
to be diplomatic, I do state in my video that look, I've seen the Reddit threads, I've seen the videos where people are like, "Oh, there's absolutely no way," because I'm sure now that she's put it out in the public domain that she's had this condition, people are going to say, "Well, you can't because at the Portland they can't treat that." Well, they obviously can. I was treated there. However, um she needs to give people a little bit more context. So yes, if she was already there and she did experience it, whether it was mild or severe, she would have been treated. But then again, if it is true and we go by what she's saying, then it stands to reason, then how could she be back in under or at 2 hours back at Frogmore? It just doesn't make
yeah, and
sense.
at the time they also Harry came out. I remember late that afternoon, and he was gave a speech that everything was wonderful, and that the son they were
Mhm.
both back home, because you cannot treat postpartum preeclampsia, guys, at home. That is a serious medical
No,
condition. Okay,
no.
for those of you who might say that. And then, of course, within 2 days, she was showing the kid. Another thing of postpartum preeclampsia is that your hands and your
Yes.
feet swell
Very puffy.
incredibly. Megan didn't
Yes.
suffer any of that, neither with Archie nor with Lily, because she's shown
Mhm.
pictures of the kid she claims, and even during. And the thing is that this is one of what the doctors told me. Sometimes when you've had, let's say that by the time she had Lily, she was in her 40. She was like 40.
Hmm.
So, and according, and we know that she had a traumatic birth, and she had a miscarriage within. Apparently, she had a miscarriage sometime in July,
And
August,
she
and
got
yet,
pregnant rather quickly after.
yeah, which
If you follow the timeline,
it's really almost impossible because
right?
I've lost children, and your body needs to, when you get pregnant, this is why you don't menstruate, because you're pregnant. And then when you
Yes.
lose a child, then your body has to readjust to the
He,
hormonal process, and it takes about 40
mhm.
days before you can menstruate, and you need to menstruate in order you need to ovulate, basically.
Yes.
So
Yes. And there's another factor as well, Paula. So everything that I went through, as far as the preeclampsia and the HELP syndrome, my my doctors were basically asking me, are you done having children? Because if you've had it once, there's an extremely high probability that you will develop preeclampsia again,
again,
and it might be more severe. Now, again, I don't know her medical records. I'm not going to call her a liar, this and that, but
I
there's
am.
so many I know. There's so
But
many
I mean, if it smells, if it
factors.
looks, if it sounds like a lie, it looks like
I
a lie,
know.
and
It's like
it is a lie. It
I
is a
know.
lie, because
I know. It's like I
nothing
tried
adds
so
up
hard.
medically. Yeah,
I
I know
try so
you're a very
hard
good lawyer.
to be diplomatic about it, and part of me is like, okay, if you want to believe the preeclampsia story, then how can we believe the story in Spare that says you were back in 2 hours? It's like, nothing is adding up. So I distinctly remember my consultant, my doctor, saying, "Are you okay? Because you're going to be at serious risk if you decide to have another baby. There's a very high probability that this is going to happen again." Luckily for me, I had a boy and a girl. So I just looked at them and
You're
said, I'm done.
done.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened to Kim Kardashian. She couldn't have.
Hmm.
This is why she had
Yes.
surrogates.
And she had very bad swelling, horrible
You
swelling. Do you
you
remember
could
the
see
pictures
it.
of
You
her?
could see it.
Yes.
Meghan has never had swelling. In fact, her legs are the skinniest they have. I mean, this woman, her legs were so thin.
The only
So, and
time, to be fair, the only time I noticed where she did look a little puffy. I mean, to me, she looked a little puffy when they were presenting Archie outside of the palace there. She looked a little bit puffy, but I didn't notice anything after that. I don't know. What
her
did you
hands
think
were
about
not
that?
swollen. Her hands were
Her
not
hands weren't
swollen. Her
swollen.
feet
To
were
me, her
not
face
swollen.
was, but
Yeah, but you can
no.
put stuff in your face to make you look a little bit, swollen. No, I'm serious. I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
serious because,
yeah.
then you had Harry with that slip up that babies change so much in 2 weeks.
Over 2 weeks. Yeah. Hmm.
As parents, when our kids are born, we count even the minutes. Oh, when they ask you, how old is your kid? He's like 2 months, 2 days, and you almost say like
Uh,
42, like
I
17 hours.
know. Or we keep saying they're 26 months, and people are like, "What the heck? Just 2 years old? Is that what you mean?" And you're like, "Oh yeah,
So you're not going to make the mistake of 2 weeks, the kids. So to
yeah."
me, and given that you were at the Portland, I was at the Portland, but not in the maternity. So this is why I
Hmm.
can't speak about that. But I can speak that they have 24-hour thing. They don't have a secret elevator. They don't have a secret because Harry said he was ushered to the secret elevator
Secret
and that there was
elevator.
no food. He was hungry, that he
Well,
inhaled
I
the
am just a
entire
commoner,
canister of.
Paula. I'm just a commoner. My husband and I went in the normal entrance. We didn't get a secret elevator.
No,
you
it's
know?
because there's none. I called the
Yeah.
Portland hospital. I'm that kind of person. I am that petty.
Yeah.
I did call.
Mhm. Well, also, Paula, and I talk about this in my video, what also just, I don't know if I'm just so easily triggered, but I mean, remember I told you that day when I heard about the story and I didn't even listen to the episode yet. I just heard about this serious medical condition. And then when I found out what it was, then my ears and everything started pricking up. So I immediately went a few hours later to listen to that episode. And it was just in passing, as if she was talking about, oh, I just went to the store and bought a bunch. It was weird, and then to say it's so rare, it's so scary,
But
and
what
I
is
say,
scary? What is rare?
in my video, it's actually not as rare and
No.
as they're making it out to be. There's
My
so
cousin
many
had
women
it.
having yes, and there's so
My
many women
cousin.
having babies later in life. So they are being, opened up to the possibility of developing it more and more. And people are stressed out. A lot of people have hypertension, men and women.
Yeah.
But one of the huge factors is if you are over 35, you really have to be monitored and watched. And that's why. So for
Yeah.
them to paint it as being so extremely rare, it's like
And deathly. And
maybe,
deathly. They said
yes.
deathly.
So I was racking my brain thinking, okay, well, maybe she's framing it as being extremely rare so that it
because it
doesn't.
only happens to her. It's like I said
Yes.
before, that everything happens to this woman. Everything that happens to this woman, she was more descriptive when she talked about the miscarriage, how she was grabbed. This is a woman who loves to go into details, very inane details, when she wrote that article about the miscarriage,
Well,
which
she
was
doesn't
that
want to be questioned either.
she was rocking the
Hmm.
baby, and then she was coming picking up the socks, and as she lifted Archie, she went down to the floor singing a lullaby. I mean, and then of course we have Abigail Spencer, who debunks that story because she said that she saw Meghan in the morning that day.
And
And then
wasn't
they,
it was in the doorway apparently, right? As
yeah,
Abigail was being,
in the doorway,
welcomed into
not picking
Meghan's
up the room.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
then Harry, basically, the hospital breaks all the rules which could shut them down and gave them whatever it was, and so
yeah.
they can bury it under a tree. This is all very, to me,
I
incredible, and this confirms to me, and I'm pretty sure to everybody, that this is a lie, and the surrogate story for me even makes more sense, because
Why
to
would
me,
the
what it,
remains of a royal baby be buried under a banyan tree somewhere in California on their
because
property?
Princess Diana in 1994 allowed her friend Rosa Stockton to
Mhm.
bury her fetus in the Kensington Palace grounds under a banyan tree. So
Okay.
Meghan,
I have never heard that.
oh, you didn't know that? Yes.
Remember reading Paula, do you remember in her article when she talked about when she was holding Harry's hand crying in the room at the Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital? Do you remember that in the
Yeah.
article? And talking about the stark white walls of the room. And I remember reading somewhere online where they were saying there aren't stark white walls in the room in that hospital. Just there's so many little things. So there's crazy attention giving to these insignificant details that don't mean anything, but yet when real context is needed to quash rumors, she's so tight-lipped. And if you're overdue, that means that if preeclampsia is present, the symptoms are getting worse and worse. The only way to relieve preeclampsia is delivery of the child.
Immediately.
So I don't really believe that the staff, I don't believe that the staff would have been worried about birthing bouncing on balls and water and trying to do all that.
And
They
he
would
said
have
they
said,
had
we're getting
candles.
a
He
C.
said they had candles
Yes,
in the room and
they would have
music.
said, for the health of the mother and the baby, we need to deliver via C-section. The only way that you can resolve preeclampsia is to deliver the baby if it's
Immediately.
happening. Right. But then again, she talks about it being after, but it's like, again, there's symptoms. There are warning signs. If you
What are
have
the
good
symptoms you
doctors,
suffered? What are the symptoms you had, for example?
well, elevated blood pressure. I was experiencing
But
elevated blood
but for
pressure
example,
levels.
something physically, because blood pressure you have to take. Like,
Oh,
did you hear whistling in
ext-
the ears, and or
extreme swelling of the extremities of the hands and the feet. My face was getting very puffy as well. And also when they talk about your vision being a little bit blurry and unfocused, that's true as well. That didn't start happening until probably about a day or so before I actually had them. But the big noticeable symptom for me was the swelling. I could not even wear regular shoes the last month
yeah,
or so. I was
yeah,
wearing house slippers everywhere I went.
yeah. So without being diplomatic, just tell me a yes or no. Do you think that the doctors at the Portland hospital would have released Meghan Markle after receiving an epidural in a complicated birth within an hour?
No.
So this has confirmed to me, at least with your experience and your knowledge inside the Portland hospital, that the Archie story is crap. So thank you very much, and please
Sadly.
go watch Jennifer's channel, and I'll link her video as well. Have a great day, everybody.